Imagine the perfect weekend getaway, a place to escape the chaos of daily life, a secluded cabin in the middle of nowhere. For most, this would sound like a dream, but for a group of 5 close friends, this trip would turn into a nightmare they could never escape. It all started with an invitation from Sarah, who found a remote cabin deep in the woods, an idyllic place far from the distractions of the world. No internet, no cell service, just the quiet sounds of nature. It seemed perfect for the weekend, a brief respite from their busy lives. What Sarah didn't know, though, was that this cabin had a history, a dark one, and the woods surrounding it were hiding secrets that no one would be able to forget.
Whisper to your ear.
Act 1. The Arrival. It was a crisp Friday afternoon when Sarah, her boyfriend Jason, and their friends Alex, Megan, and Kyle arrived at the cabin. The drive was long, the kind where the only thing visible for miles were endless stretches of trees. When they reached the cabin, nestled far away from the nearest town, the first thing they noticed was its age. The cabin wasn't just old, it was decaying, its wood warped and weathered by years of neglect. But the real kicker, the only thing they could see, was the deep, dense forest surrounding it, silent and ominous. Still, they shrugged it off. After all, what could go wrong? They unloaded their bags, settled in, and cracked open the first bottle of wine. The fire crackled in the fireplace as laughter echoed in the cozy living room, making it easy to forget that they were far from civilization. But it wasn't long before they stumbled upon something that would change everything. Act 2. The Discovery. While unpacking in the dusty attic, Kyle found an old, leather-bound journal. It was hidden beneath a pile of forgotten boxes, its pages yellowed with age. At first glance, it seemed like just another relic, something forgotten by time. But the more Kyle flipped through it, the more unsettling it became. The journal belonged to someone named Samuel, someone who had stayed in the cabin many years before. The entries started innocently enough, with descriptions of the surrounding woods and the beauty of nature. But as Kyle read deeper, the tone shifted, darkened. The journal spoke of people who'd gone missing, people who came to this cabin and never left. Samuel wrote about strange noises in the woods at night, whispers that seemed to come from the trees themselves. He wrote about a sense of being watched, about figures lurking just beyond the tree line. One entry caught Kyle's eye. "It's been 3 days since we arrived, and no one has seen or heard from Robert. We thought he was just wandering, but now we're sure something's out there. Something isn't right." Kyle's voice faltered as he shared the entry with the group. They all laughed it off, thinking it was just some overactive imagination from a man who had stayed in the cabin too long. But the unease had already begun to settle in. Something about the way the journal described the woods made them feel uneasy. As if the trees weren't just trees, no, they were something more. Act 3. The First Night. As night fell, the air grew thick with tension. The wind howled through the trees, and the crackling fire only seemed to make the silence outside more deafening. Everyone tried to enjoy the evening games, stories, more drinks, but something was off. Megan kept glancing at the dark windows, as if expecting something to appear just beyond the glass. Jason and Sarah were in the kitchen, laughing and preparing food, but Kyle was still fixated on the journal, flipping through the pages again. That's when he noticed something terrifying. The last entry in the journal was unfinished. It read, "The others are gone. The thing in the woods is taking them, one by one. I can hear its footsteps behind me. I know it's coming for me." If you're reading this, the page ended abruptly. Kyle stood frozen, the journal in his hands trembling. He called to the others, but when they came to the living room, he couldn't bring himself to read the final entry aloud. They just laughed it off, assuming it was a crazy person's ramblings. But as the night wore on, the atmosphere in the cabin grew heavier. The windows creaked with the wind, and distant, echoing sounds of cracking branches filled the air. The group tried to ignore it, but one by one, they all grew silent, looking at each other in growing suspicion. Was it the wind? Or was something watching them? Act 4. The Whispers. Later that night, as the fire burned low, strange noises began to seep into the cabin. It started with faint whispers, so quiet that they were barely audible over the crackling fire. Sarah looked up, her eyes wide with confusion. "Did you hear that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. But the others shook their heads. "It's just the wind," Jason said. But the whispers grew louder. "Help me." It was faint, distant but clear enough to send a chill down their spines. Everyone stood up at once, startled, but no one moved. The whispers were getting louder, coming from outside the cabin, from the woods. It wasn't the wind anymore, it was something else. A voice. Suddenly, Kyle's face turned pale. "It's the journal," he muttered. "The last entry. It's happening." And then silence. The fire flickered, and the group was plunged into an unnatural quiet. Act 5. The Hunt. It didn't take long for things to spiral out of control. That night, the group couldn't sleep. Every creak, every shadow in the corner of their eyes made them jump. But when morning came, it seemed to be over. The whispers had stopped, the strange feelings were gone, and they laughed it off as a bad night. But they couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. As the day wore on, they began to notice things they hadn't before. The woods were unnaturally quiet. No birds, no animals. It was as though nature itself had fallen still, holding its breath. That's when the first disappearance happened. Jason, who had wandered outside for some fresh air, simply vanished. One moment he was standing by the trees, the next gone. The others rushed outside, calling his name, but there was no sign of him. No footprints, nothing. Panic set in. They tried to leave the cabin, but the roads that had once seemed familiar now felt foreign, distorted. The path back to the car was gone. The trees seemed to close in around them, blocking every route. And that's when they saw it. A figure standing in the distance, half hidden in the trees. It was tall, unnatural, and though they couldn't see its face, they knew it was watching them. They ran back to the cabin, but it was too late. Act 6. The Final Stand. The friends huddled inside, barricading the doors, but the thing in the woods was drawing closer. The whispers returned, louder this time, filling their ears with pleading cries, demanding that they leave. But no one could move. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. A soft, pleading knock. It was Jason. They opened it cautiously, only to find that it wasn't Jason anymore. His body was, Wrong. Twisted. His eyes were wide with terror, his skin pale as death. The group screamed in horror, slamming the door shut, but it was already too late. One by one, they were picked off, dragged into the woods by unseen forces. Each friend's final moments filled with the horror of realizing that the cabin, the journal, and the woods were all connected by a dark force and ancient evil that claimed anyone foolish enough to enter. The finale, the unseen force. The following morning, the cabin stood empty. No one ever saw the group of friends again. The cabin on the edge of the woods remained untouched, a testament to the mystery that no one could solve. Local legends speak of a dark presence that haunts the forest and ancient evil, lurking in the shadows, waiting for its next victims. And the journal? It was found, years later, by another traveler, its pages once again stained with the blood of those who dared to read. The end. Or is it? If this story gave you chills, smash that like button, subscribe for more nightmares, and share with someone brave enough to watch alone. See you in Monday.